So good morning, guys, again. And as I said, this is something novel today. Today's guests are stars of Shrewsbury television.
Stars.
They host two regular shows on Shrewsbury Media Cable, Coach's Corner and the Good Morning Shrewsbury. And that's what we're doing this morning. We're taping the television show Good Morning Shrewsbury. Additionally, for nearly 20 years, they've filmed, announced, and broadcast a large percentage of Shrewsbury High sporting events. Bob Bigda has announced the football games. Johnny Mastro, a big NASCAR fan, wink wink, alongside Bill Orflia, provide color analysis. Nick Tedisco is their award-winning producer, commentator, and one of this recent season's inductees into the Shrewsbury High Sports Hall of Fame. If you follow their football coverage of Shrewsbury High, you know that they predict what play the coach will call. They critique the game's officiating. And they provide technical, scientific terminology such as barak and extraordinary color commentary like wow. Wish Johnny was here for that.
Yeah, right.
Very limited vocabulary.
Of course, my personal favorite is having school coaches and team captains participate in the show Coach's Corner and see what great kids we have here at Shrewsbury High. Please welcome the stars of Channel 328 Sports Team. Nick?
Well, before we start our show, are we rolling, Mark? You are? Okay. Well, good morning, Shrewsbury. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for inviting the four of us. John Master's not here, obviously. He called into coming here this morning and said he couldn't make it. He had to go to work, which is a lame excuse, Johnny, because he'll be watching this. Because all three of us recognize a lot of your faces. Most of you, some of you that I don't know, knew my father, who grew up in Shrewsbury as well, Nick Sr. And if he was here, he'd be shaking your hand and giving you all hugs if you knew him. So thank you. I know that I recognize some of my teachers here, Mr. Zoner and Mr. Montecalvo, and my Uncle Bub, my mother's brother, is sitting over here, Bub Hersey. And so I just wanted to point out some of those guys here. We're going to do our Good Morning Shrewsbury show, so we'll be, if you want to pipe in and say what you'd like and ask questions, that'd be fine. We really enjoy doing what we're doing. Coach's Corner, Good Morning Shrewsbury, the broadcasting we get a big kick out of, especially for doing the football games. So thanks for having us, and Good Morning Shrewsbury. So my first question is to Mr. Montecalvo.
Joe.
Joe. I'm going to call you Mr. Montecalvo. And that won't ever change. How did you start the men's club? How did that begin? And
Well,
just so let the town know.
Yeah,
we'll
actually, it started way back in, I think, the early 70s or late 60s, when a few people got together. Amongst them was Arthur Salucci, representative at that time. And they met at the American Legion Post just to discuss football, sports, Shrewsbury, etc. And it started out with about, from what I understand, 8 to 10 people. And from then it just grew. So it was for people who lived or worked in Shrewsbury through the years, were welcome, and they had coffee and they had donuts, and we still do that. And the idea was to get together and just to discuss amongst ourselves certain topics that are happening in the town. And we graduate a little by having guest speakers. And so we have a guest speaker mostly every meeting. And we also have luncheons. And we also have some daily trips, like Pawtucket Red Sox and the museum and places like that. The dues is only $2 for the coffee and donuts. But believe it or not, we have in our treasurer over $4,000. Don't ask me how we got there, but we got there. We ask one donation for each new member, $5, which really is for lifetime, really, in a sense. So we go on from there. And as we say, we have guest speakers every week, and they're interesting, and they run the gamut of all things. And we invite sometimes the hockey coach and the players and football players, and Costa, the athletic director, who, by the way, is my nephew.
Oh, nice.
Well, his wife is my niece, so he's my nephew. He calls me Uncle Joe.
There you go.
So that's about it, Nick. That's how we really get started.
Mr. Montecalvo, how often do you guys meet?
Every Thursday.
Every Thursday, unless there's no school.
Unless there's no school or unless we're on a trip somewhere or whatever it may be.
Yep.
But every Thursday, we start at 9:30. We usually end at 10:30.
Nice.
Very nice.
How would you guys like to know how we get started? We,
Wait a minute, before you start,
What?
you were going to point something about the flag?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
when
what's
we
wrong
say
with
the
that
pledge,
eagle? Is that a tax cut?
the heck?
They took half the wing away.
It was wounded when we
Wounded,
started
huh?
having riots. And
Mark, can you get the eagle on top? Oh, you got it? Okay, thank you.
All right, let me begin by telling you guys how we started. Back in the late 90s, Billy D'Amelia and Johnny Mastro, their sons, were playing football for Shrewsbury High School at the time. And they were filming all their games. And with the little cameras that they had back then and everything. And then our boys came in on the team. Billy D'Amelia's son graduated. Johnny's son was there for the last year, and our boys joined them. So Nicky got involved, and then Billy D'Amelia had a great idea. Let's start filming this down at SPAC.
Right. And to take it from there, Bill,
Yeah.
we started a gridiron club with Terry Wallace for the football team, and the gridiron club grew. And one of the ideas was to do a media part of that, where we would broadcast the games, actually broadcast the games. So we met with the people from Shrewsbury Public Access, Laurie Bergman, and talked to her about what we could do to broadcast the football games on a weekly basis. And then at that time, she suggested that we take production classes to learn how to do that. So it'll be 20 years this August. It'll be 20 years ago. And that was when I met a young man at that time. He's not young anymore, a little bit old. He's got gray in his beard and his hair. But his name is Mark Serra. Mark Serra has been with us, with our crew, so we feel like he's part of us since the beginning of that. And Mark actually taught us how to produce a television show, taught Billy D'Amelia and myself. And I told Billy that I would stay in the broadcast booth and stay in the production booth, and Billy would go out and interview the student athletes and the coaches, and so I didn't start coming in front of the camera until 15 years after the show began, only because we lost a couple of people that were on our show. And we originally started with Billy D'Amelia was actually the voice of the Colonials at that time, and Johnny Mastro was his sidekick. We had Dennis Mastro. Dennis was one of our, and Dennis would still be with us if he didn't. He
Hate
was.
us.
Yeah. Good.
We hate us.
And he just went after some of the referees out there. And actually, we all do, but not to the extent that Dennis did. And we also we had a couple other guys. I'm sure many of you heard of a gentleman by the name of Henry Grant Petro. Henry was with us for many years until It was like sort of like the Beatles. You know, the Beatles had people that broke away and broke up, but that's what happened to us. We just, you know, you can't stay together without having arguments, and we've stayed together all this time because we still have arguments and fight like we're little boys sometimes.
Yeah, but wait a second.
What?
We were doing a show, and we tried to keep in the present. You know, and we were talking sports in the present. Well, then Henry started talking about the past.
Every show.
Well, I got up, walked off. Bobby got up, walked off. We all got up and walked off.
And Henry was sitting there all alone, and at that time when he got really upset that we didn't want to talk about 1943, which I mean, I wasn't alive then, but he was talking about the high school team in 1952 or whatever, and you know, we kind of, you know, it was kind of rude what we did at the time, but we had warned him. We had told him about 40 times, you know, we want to talk about sports, what's going on today. So, but we don't hold that against Henry. We love Henry. Henry's a great guy. I've produced shows for him, and we're all friends. So Henry went off in his direction, and that's great. And we've had, and over the years, we've had a plethora of different guests on the show. Our latest one being Mr. Joe Montecalvo, and I love having him here. Donnie Green, who's sitting right there, and before the night's over, before the show is over, I'm sure that we'll hear some heckling from that direction over there. He's sitting right in front, and so I figured I'd be the first one to heckle him.
We tamed him to a certain point.
Oh, okay. But Donnie used to come on our show once in a while and come on. Actually, Donnie came on our show one time, and he was dressed in his Red Sox cap, Red Sox jersey, Red Sox complete uniform. He had just got finished participating in the spring training down in Florida. So
Fantasy Island he went to.
Fantasy Island. So we, you know, so if we took Donnie Green on, we'd just about take anybody, really. So.
Well, you know, Donnie Green was my classmate of 51, of 50, and 52. He was a classmate of all three classes.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Really?
That's too bad.
So,
Happy with somebody.
So we've been doing the shows. We've been doing. I can't tell you how many. Well, actually,
Give
Laurie.
a list. Give a list.
Well, I had a list that Laurie had put together for me earlier this summer of telling me how many actual shows we've done, and I know we've done over close to 2,000 shows in total, which is some sort of a record for this side of the Mississippi, I guess. But I mean, we've broadcast every sport. We've done. Football has been our primary sport. We've done a gazillion basketball games, and we haven't done any basketball games probably in a couple of years now, because it's just, you know, basketball, doing a broadcast, you've got a broadcaster, and really he's the one that's doing all the work, because the camera guy is just, and that's basically all you're doing for the entire game. So it's not really that difficult. You can put anybody up there to do it.
No, it's difficult.
Right.
You start watching the game while you're doing the camera. And the camera just stays there and you watch it.
Your head's going like this, the camera's staying still.
You got the floor, you got the fans. That's all right.
Hockey is a fun sport to broadcast. I mean, it's very exciting. We love doing hockey games. It's really difficult to do it with a camera, trying to follow a puck around the back and forth on that ice sometimes. It's, you know, and I hear my biggest critics are right here. You know, they'll let me know, Nick, your camera's too close. Well, back up, and all, you know. So hockey is different. Football is I don't want to say it's the easiest, but because when somebody fades back to pass, you've got to know when to open up the lens so that you capture the pass, you know, and you got to know when to open up the camera and when to zoom into a player or something like that. So, you know, there's a lot of technical stuff that goes into it.
A quick story, you'll get a charge out of this. When the high school football team went to Gillette Stadium to play for the state championship, we got passes. We were going to be able to film it. We were big time, you know, better than ESPN. Well, anyways, we went to where we thought we were supposed to, and we had our passes. What do they have? They have a buffet where we sit down, we enjoy ourselves, we eat our hearts out, and then we find out we're on the wrong floor.
Wrong side of the stadium.
Wrong side of the stadium. So we had to get up and go somewhere. They had no food, nothing. So anyways, we had our full, and then we did the game, and
Well,
That was
you
it.
forgot to tell them that we got there late for the game.
We're waiting for the elevator, and the gate. We're watching the game start and go on TV. We missed the first 5 minutes of the game.
Because we were walking to where we had to go. Anyways,
That wasn't good.
great food, great passes too.
That was it. The best location that we've been able to broadcast a game from, I think Bobby will agree, Billy, is at Springfield, out in Springfield. Their state
college.
No, not the college. I'm talking about the rink with it.
the DC
Springfield
or the
College,
Civic Center or
The Civic
whatever,
Center
yeah.
in Springfield.
Right on top.
I think
It is a
game.
great place to broadcast. They give you plenty of room. The seating is great, and you're right on top of the ice. That's the greatest
Yeah,
place.
that was nice.
Press box, as far as press boxes are concerned, of us doing, now we look at all the things that we can complain about, okay? I think the best press box in central Massachusetts is in Neshoba, and we're hoping that Shrewsbury High can do something with this upgrade. If we get a new turf at Shrewsbury High, I'm not sure where you guys stand for that. We totally promote it, because we'd like to see the kids be competitive with all the different high schools in central Massachusetts who have turf fields, plus all the college coaches will come in and they can look at a competitive level if we had a turf field versus when they go to some other schools. But anyways, our press box is like very tight where we are now at Shrewsbury High. Now, at least we got a roof over our head. That's the good thing. That's the blessing. But it could be a lot better.
We got squeegees. When it gets cold and it gets dewy, misty inside, we get squeegees going down the windows, and then we're banging on windows. Get down in front of us. Get down.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been quite a ride for the last 20 years, 19 years. We're on our 19th season, and we've done, like I said, we've done every sport. One of the most remarkable games that we ever broadcast was we did a field hockey game once. One game. We broadcast one girls' field hockey game, and I wasn't doing the play-by-play. I was just doing color commentary, and I'm not sure, was it you, Bobby, that was doing the play-by-play that game?
Yeah, that was.
And we know nothing about field hockey.
Absolutely nothing.
Zero. So whenever the referee would blow the whistle for the game, we'd look at each other and we'd make up something like footsies. That had to be footsies, or
handsy.
Or that was definitely a handsy.
Nice stick. Yeah,
Those are handsies. Yeah.
So that was
Billy's niece, Tiffany, came at halftime, and we made her stay with us because she had played it one time.
Explained it to us.
And he explained the whole game to us. So we did much better the second half.
The second worst thing is not having a roster. And you're trying to call out guys, kids from other teams. Well, last year in the hockey finals, one of the finals, we were playing Wachusett, and we didn't have their lineup, so we didn't know who they were. But they were a tall guy, and
The other tall guy.
and a real tall guy, and that's how we called
they had a
it.
short guy too.
Real
so-
tall guy with the puck. Oh, the other tall guy with
And
the
that's
puck.
what we named him. Yeah. So tall guy was really.
He was really good.
He had a good game.
Really good. Don't know who he was, but he was really good. Tall guy.
So you compare the hockey games and the football games where we think that we are really have mastered over 20 years. If you listen to some of the referees talk to us when we get them to the side, if you listen to them talking about us and telling us what they think after they hear our broadcast, and they actually know the rules of the game, where they listen to our broadcast, for them it's like listening to our field hockey game.
True story. God's honest truth. I went to Eddie Heider's funeral wake, and I waited in line 2.5 hours. I finally get into the church, and all of a sudden I hear this guy say, "You stink." I turn around. I says, "What?" He says, "You guys are awful." I said, and then I recognized him. He was one of the referees for football. So I said, "In church you told me I stink?" So we're well known. Maybe not. Maybe not as good. We were even told we stunk when we went to see a basketball game at WPI. A group of referees were sitting together. And as we were walking up, you guys stink. Oh, thank you very much.
We have to take it because basically we're saying the same thing about them when we're doing the broadcast.
I know.
You know, that guy down there, number 22, the referee, what's he had for lunch today? You know, something like that. They just
No,
we see it different.
We
see it
usually don't
differently.
agree with them. We don't.
No.
We don't. But Bobby's always the level-headed person. He really is.
Yeah, right.
You gotta have one.
He's turning red.
I have a funny story talking about Coach's Corner. We've done a lot of different sports, and Nick said we primarily focus on football, basketball, and baseball, but we do have other sports come on. We've had the crew team, we've had cheerleaders, track team. I think the funniest time we had the lacrosse team come on. And we were talking about, we don't know much about lacrosse because none of us played when we were growing up. And we were talking about the sticks and how much they cost and the equipment they have to buy. And so one of the kids had a helmet with him. So Billy says, well, let me try that on. Well, he tries it on. It took us about 20 minutes to get it off his head at the end of the show.
Could not get it off.
That was a good one. Then we had the debate team on.
Oh, the debate team.
Yeah. And we debated whether debate was a sport or
What a
not.
night.
I think we lost that
We
one.
lost that too.
Yeah.
How about the show we did down at Southgate?
Oh, that was good. Yeah, we did a show at Southgate.
Yeah, tell them about
We had
that.
a card table set up on the sidewalk. We were doing it outside, and this lady was going by in a motorized chair on the other side of the street. So we were kind of in a lull during the show. We called her over. We said, oh, come on over, come on the show. Well, she comes across the street, she comes down the sidewalk, never stops, wipes out our table.
Camera goes flying.
Camera goes
Camera
flying.
fell over.
She was from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, she was a Pittsburgh fan. So it was pretty funny.
That was a classic moment.
Yeah.
We did the last show at White City Theater, on the steps of White City Theater, the day before they tore it down. We said, we can't let White City be, go without a one last hurrah. So we set the tables up, and we did it on the steps, and we shot out the last show at White City Theater was the Good Morning Shrewsbury show. We were pretty proud of that, right? Back in the day.
Yeah.
So.
And you got to give Nicky a lot of credit too, because when he does all the filming, a lot of times he's outside. He's on top of the building, and we got all the feed wires coming down to us. And we're inside where it's, we're fairly comfortable because we're protected from the winds and everything. But when it gets real cold, and Nicky's up on top, and he's filming, and then he tries to talk, some of the words that comes out of his mouth. Go ahead, tell him all the words.
No, Bobby's got the book.
Yeah, we have new words that Nick made up over the years. We have, you guys probably don't know, we have a 55-yard line at Shrewsbury High School. Yeah, according to Nick, we do. We have a new position of fullbacker, a place kisser.
Place kisser.
Place kisser.
That was a good one.
And we had, the anatomy lesson when he got down on all four knees to help me. Yeah. What else do we have?
But he put up with some severe temperatures.
Kanaki. Yeah. The
Kanaki
funny
game.
one was we're doing a hockey game at the New England Sports Arena out by the mall, and we're playing Hudson. Or no, we played Hudson the previous year, and Hudson was playing somebody that the game before ours. And as we walk in, the game ends and Hudson wins again. So it's going to be us against Hudson for the second year in a row. Nick turns to me and says, "Oh, it's going to be a rematch of next year."
Tell me, what kind
Yogi Berra had nothing on me. Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
what kind of feedback do you get from the general public?
Honestly, outside the little ribbing that we get, it's mostly positive. Some of the people have come up to us and with tears in their eyes and have thanked us. People that can't get out on a weekend to go to a game, and I don't know how they find us entertaining, honestly, but they do, and they thank us for doing the broadcast and bringing the games. And a lot of that credit has to go again to Shrewsbury Media Connection, because without them and without that organization down there that have worked with us so closely over the years, it wouldn't be possible for us. They've brought us up with high definition television now, and they've opened a lot of doors for us.
How about the financial aspect of it? Do you have any finances?
Well, actually, no. We get, at the beginning of the season, your nephew gives us all coaches' passes to all the games, so that so there's no real
There's no costs involved?
The only cost comes through the Shrewsbury Media Connection with the upgrade of the cable, of the cameras, or the electronics of the equipment that they have to provide for us. Because I don't know how many, over the course of 20 years, I don't know how many headsets that we've destroyed, or how many microphones that have got fallen apart.
How many tin cans we had to go
Yeah, we used to have strings for cans. Oh. Yeah.
Who does the editing? I mean, how about the editing? You do much editing?
In the course of 20 years, we've probably edited at the most 4 shows. 4 shows in 20 years. So what you see is what you get. We try and tape it, and it's usually pretty clean. And I think maybe 4 times in the course of 20 years, I've had to go back and have Mark edit out. Actually, there's been a couple of times when we should have edited stuff out that have come back and bit us in the can, but you know, that's my fault because I'm the producer and it was an oversight on my part. Mr. Green.
Would you like to have instant replay?
We pretend. we pretend because we know it's taped.
We pretend we see it again and say, yeah, we definitely were right.
See, he did fumble. He did fumble.
We were definitely right on that one.
Imagine, you know, drifts. Imagination drifts. But,
yes, sir.
I understand your expertise on sports, but where'd you get your expertise on where to go to eat after the game?
A man after our own heart.
Going over there. After every game, usually we try to go out to eat. And we pick places close to where we are. Because sometimes, you know, we're up in Fitchburg, we're not going to make it to the Wexford house in time for them to open the cookers to the food to us anyways. So anyways, we try to pick places close. And we used to critique them all. We did.
Yeah.
And we narrowed it down to the real close places now. Wexford House,
Other place
pub, Applebee's. So
there was one gentleman that years ago invited us over his house for dinner. I said he was going to and never did.
Yeah.
And so we kept on him for close to 20 years, and finally Billy said, that's it, we're not going to ask him anymore.
That's it, this year. We thought we'd shame him into
We
getting
even
us.
stopped saying his name on the broadcast because we were giving him a little bit of PR, but he promised us a macaroni and meatball dinner, and it never happened.
At a Jewish house?
Excuse me?
At a Jewish house?
No.
Yeah, although, you know, in the end it might have been like that, you know, I don't know.
No.
So we don't want to just throw any disparaging words.
But we enjoy talking about food when we had an opportunity.
You guys are kind of calm today. Instead of watching on the sports thing, you're calm, collected, no yelling, no hollering. Just an observation.
Well, if you guys want to pick up a bocce ball and start throwing it around in here, we can do the play-by-play and
You know, Johnny, God bless him, I wish he was here, because we'd rag on him the whole time. Johnny, when he's around us, and he's got that mic, he's on it 75% of the time.
At least, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, there have been shows when Bobby and I just sat there, and we didn't say anything.
And he never noticed.
Yeah. Johnny would ask the young kids questions, then he wouldn't answer them.
And then tell him it was a good answer.
Tell him it was a good answer. So that's just typical of us ragging on Johnny because he's not here. But
we love him though. We
love him.
We love Johnny.
You know, let me tell you a quick story about Johnny. We had a football game at Foley Stadium. And,
jeez.
And Nicky was driving that day. All 4 of us got in the car. Nicky was driving. When Nicky parks in in the parking lot across the street. But he doesn't park, you know, just across the street from the door. He parks across the street and down a ways. And at the time, Johnny's knee was bothering and his hip was bothering. And he was cursing us all. I hope you never feel like I feel. So that was something like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So every year, one of us got in an helmet, and we always use that line. I hope you don't feel like I feel right now.
Something stick with you.
Yeah, and that was one of them with Johnny. But Johnny's become famous for wow. Yeah. Wow. It's because he doesn't have words.
Do you ever get critique from in letters or anything like that from the audience, from the viewers? In other words, do some viewers write to you? Or do they get in touch with you personally?
When we're naughty, we'll get a letter from a parent or something like that, and let us know that we maybe have said something off color or like that, and it's rare because our credo over all the years has been we do this for the kids.
Right.
So we always try really hard not to go back on the kids. You know, it's all about the kids. We don't say anything disparaging about the kid. We, you know, if we do, we hide the microphone or something like that. But we try really hard to be purists at heart when it comes to the kids because we're doing it for the kids.
Yeah.
We have no problem going after the coaches. We have no problem going after the referees or each other. Going after each other is easier. But no, we typically don't get.
The best critique we've ever gotten was that you don't tell us the score often enough. Yeah. You know, during the game, I mean, we could go a whole half. What's the score? None of us said it.
Yeah.
But it's because we're so involved in the game, we forget what the scoreboard is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's Nick's fault. He should have been, had the camera on.
Well, that's what we tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know when Marky does it now, Mark does a great job. He always zooms in on the scoreboard and stuff.
How about live audiences? You get any live audiences?
To be honest with you, this is the second live audience we've ever done. Actually, you got to figure, we always do broadcasts that are live. Every Coach's Corner show is broadcast live to the town of Shrewsbury. But we don't see faces. All we see is a lens. So we feel like we're just in somebody's living room talking to each other. So this is the first time we've actually done it in front of a group of gentlemen or a live audience like this. I think that's why Johnny didn't come, honestly. I think he was scared. He was scared.
We always ask for them to call in with questions, especially for the kids. And we've had kids get prom date requests.
Oh yeah, that happened one time. Lee Diamantopoulos, he's the baseball coach at Shrewsbury High School now. He was one of the best quarterbacks that we've had at Shrewsbury High School in all the years. Great. If you ever met Lee, if you haven't met him, you should go up to him and just shake his hand. He's a great kid. But I think we had him on Coach's Corner more than any other athlete in over the years.
Yeah, well, we saw Lee when he was a freshman to sophomore, junior, senior, so young.
Right.
We saw
He started when we started the show, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's right. So his junior year, he got a phone call during the broadcasting of Coach's Corner, and a girl asked him to go to the junior prom on our show. And you thought Bobby got ready. You should have seen how ready he was that night. Oh, he was a little bit embarrassed.
Did you ever do any interviews at halftime or anything? Or did you ever think about doing that, or would you wanted to keep the broadcast as short as possible so that you could, you know, how did that ever come across?
Well, when we do, you want to talk? Well, when we do our live broadcasts, football games on Friday nights, occasionally, we've been doing it a lot lately. Like this year, we did do an interview with the people from the turf committee to talk about the turf at halftime. But typically, that's a great time for us to get up and go eat.
That's right. We had eaten in an hour, so we have to go get some.
So we go out and get a little snack between, we got to run to the concession stand and get a burger or something like that so that we can go make it until we go out to dinner afterwards. But we used to do, in the early days, after the games were over, we would go interview the athletes. We'd go and sit down, interview them and say, tell us a little bit about the game, what you thought. Like they'll see on a national broadcast, they'll interview the quarterback or whatever after the game. So, sir.
How many 5-yard penalties did Terry Walls get for delaying the game?
Good question.
Very good question.
Too many to mention. Was he awful? He went into timeout, and he came back in timeout and got a 5-yard penalty for delay of game.
He had 2 in a row one time, I think. We had him on, we did our Super Bowl show 2 weeks ago.
Did you guys see that? The Super Bowl show that we did? We
We
all
had,
predicted the Patriots to win, by the way.
Yeah. We had John Aloisi, the current coach at Shrewsbury High football. Tommy Hendrickson, who coached St. Peter Marion for a while. And Terry was the third coach we had on. Well, the show started, no Terry.
Terry came in late.
Terry comes in 2 minutes late, and we said, now we know why you got all those delay of game penalties. He goes, wow, you haven't seen me in a year, you're throwing me under the bus already.
Donnie.
I'm considering sponsoring an underwater badminton. Not topless, just underwater. Would you televise it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Badminton.
Anything to see you drown, we'll go.
Oh, applause, too!
You know, at the end of the Coach's Corner, when we have the kids on, we always strive to have them tell us where they go to college. So we prepare them for, at the end of the show, we'll go ask you what your plans are for college and stuff. And so whatever your plans are, just talk about it, and that's all we want to know. Because we always try to make sure that, sports is important, but academics is just as good. And over the years, we've had some great kids who went some great colleges, played some great ball. So what's the best thing is when they come back and they see us during Thanksgiving, they'll come into the press box and say hi to us and stuff.
Yeah, we've actually had some of the kids on our Coach's Corner show come and sign their letter of intent to go to their colleges. We had the Adetes girl, not Amanda, Jessica. Yeah, Jess came on the show and signed her letter to go to Maryland. She got a free boat there, and there was somebody else too. I can't remember who it was.
Well, Brittany Altamari.
Brittany
We had
Altamari.
Brittany
went to
Altamari
Virginia.
on the show.
And Shea went to Boston College, play hockey.
Right.
Yeah, we tried to fix them up.
Eddie Shea.
Didn't work. Eddie Shea.
Yeah. I think we had Eddie and Brittany on the same show.
Yeah, same show, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What was your favorite football game that you covered? Can each of you pick one that you remember the most?
Oh, it has to be.
Go ahead.
No, it has to be the first Super Bowl win.
It was. It was the 2000 Super Bowl game. Shrewsbury High they'd been to the Super Bowl twice before. The first time they got beat by 7 points. The second game they were beat by 46-15 or something like that. And the way that Shrewsbury High won that game, after being up, and then East Long Meadow came back and took the lead, and with less than 2 minutes left in the game, Shrewsbury High was driving with the football, and to win it with 20 seconds, tie the score with 20 seconds. Oh, was it?
Not even.
They hadn't tied it yet. It was 21.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
And they had to go for a 2-point conversion to win the game at the end of the game.
And we made it.
It was incredible.
It was emotional. The announcers, Johnny, Billy D'Amelia, they were all crying. They were all crying, and it was a great win. It was a great come from behind win.
Yeah, that I think all of us, to a T, would have to say that was our greatest game that we broadcast. And it was when we first started broadcasting too, back in 2017, 18 years ago.
All right, let's take the opposite. How about the weather? Okay, what game? Okay, did you ever?
Good, Nicky. You're the one that suffers through it.
There's been a few.
There's
been a few. I would have to say the worst, where like Billy had brought back the time when I couldn't really speak at all. It was probably about 4 years ago. Was it 4 years ago or 6 years ago at Shrewsbury High School on Thanksgiving Day?
Oh.
And
it
was the temperature outside had to be hovering around 10 degrees, but the wind up on that hill was probably about 35, 40 mile an hour winds. So the only dope that was outside was me. The parents had all either huddled up next to the press box or in the press box or had gone home. All right, there was usually at the when I'm broadcasting a football game, there's probably about maybe 12 people on the roof of the press box, coaches, the other schools there with cameras, the kids are there. I was the only guy that was on the roof of the press box broadcasting the game. So that was I think the worst game. There was another game too I did with Bobby up in where was it? Oakmont.
Oakmont, that was cool too.
And I had ice in my beard at the
Frost
time,
all
so
over.
it was pretty bad. So, sir.
I have a two-part question. What do you think of the Shrewsbury-St. John's town rivalry? First part. Second part, should St. John's be allowed to play Division III football?
Okay, I'll answer the first one. You can answer this. You guys answer the second one. We all love the Shrewsbury High rivalry with St. John's. It goes back many years. Prior to when I played football at Shrewsbury High, my brother went to St. John's. I went to Shrewsbury High, so it was quite a rivalry in my home. And I think it's gotten over the years a lot friendlier. I think that both schools appreciate the rivalry a lot more than what we used to, where you'd see a lot of fights in the parking lot after the games years ago. Now you see the handshakes, and one team wins it one year to the next. And obviously St. John's every year, they don't rebuild, they reload every year. Shrewsbury has to go through that process of rebuilding. So it's a great rivalry. We love it. We love doing the games, especially the football games. And the second part of the question?
Well, I was going to answer part of the first too. I think today's sports, more so than when we were growing up, AAU plays a big part of the sports world these days. The kids, the high school season, but then a lot of kids focus on one sport. They'll play one sport year round. And I think a lot of the Shrewsbury kids play with the St. John's kids in the off seasons. They play basketball, baseball, football. One prime example is this year's Legion team. Went to the World Series, the college Legion World Series, and it was made up of pretty much half and half Shrewsbury and St. John's kids, and they got along
perfectly.
I
mean, they loved each other. They were kids from Shrewsbury.
They welcomed the opportunity to play with each other, and they had a great time, and they performed very well. But as far as competing in the Division III football, I think St. John's obviously is a little bit of an advantage because they're taking kids from all over. You look at the roster and they have kids from Fitchburg and kids even from Connecticut and Rhode Island and things like that. So it's a little bit. They have a little bit of an advantage in that respect, but I think competitively, I have to say, since we've been doing it, there's been a great balance of power there. I think that in football, we've held our own quite well. Basketball, the last few years, we've done very well, even though, they're always one of the premier teams in basketball. We seem to give them a good game every year. Sometimes I don't think we win that often. Baseball is always a very good game. Last year, I think, won extra innings, 9 innings. Yep. They beat us 2-1.
Yeah, it's not just Shrewsbury, too. Wachusett competes fairly well
they
with
do.
them, too.
And
so.
Leominster and, all the bigger schools seem to compete well on it.
What is Division III? What is special about Division III?
Well, that's the top division in Central Mass for football. We don't have a Division I or II. We start at Division III, and that's where St. John's, Shrewsbury, Wachusett, all those teams fall in. So what they've tried to do recently is have an actual state championship where we see all the football games at Gillette. They're going each division. The Division I games are, all the Eastern Mass teams are pretty much in that. You have Everett, Brockton, all the bigger schools, bigger enrollments, I think, have those. But
and they're big boys.
Yeah, they are huge.
They are much bigger than Division III boys. They are. And a lot of those kids are going Division I. A lot of those kids go Division I.
In college.
In college, what I'm talking.
Well, speaking of rivalry with St. John's, one of the reasons for the rivalry was that a lot of Shrewsbury boys were playing for St. John's.
Right.
And there was a lot of rivalry at that time.
Yeah.
In my time, all we did with St. John's is scrimmage.
Yeah.
Our rivalry was Westboro.
Yeah.
For many years, it was Westboro. And the rivalry is an important part of the program because that's what people enjoy. And I remember one time, if I may, Klemnick asked me to be the administrator for a basketball game between St. John's and Shrewsbury. And I said, sure, because he had to go to the hockey game. Well, little did I know what happened. The place was loaded. and all of a sudden there's a fight on the floor, and all the teams come down. And I get involved in there with a few other teachers, etc. I hurt my elbow, broke my glasses to break up the fight. That rivalry was strong. There was another time when the referee came to me and said, basketball game, and said, I want that guy out of the ball game. I said, why? He says, he swore at me. So I said, okay. So he said, we won't start the game unless he leaves. So I walk over, and the place is very quiet. There's 1,100 people there. And I says to the guy, you're going to have to leave. He says, no way am I leaving. He says, I'm not the one that swore. So I called the ref over. Is he the one? He said, he's the one. I said, you're going to have to leave. No, I'm not. So very quietly I said, look, I'll have to call the police. They're going to have to remove you. They'll probably arrest you in front of all these people. You want that to happen? He thought, and he thought, and he finally got up and left and says to the official, I'll see you after the game. So I had to get a cruiser there after the game to make sure nothing happened.
And that gentleman was Bob Bigda.
Could have been me, but it wasn't.
Because Bobby is very similar to that gentleman.
Is that right?
Although I don't think you swore though, right?
No, I didn't.
No. Yeah, right. Okay.
This year, St. John's played Shrewsbury at Shrewsbury. And at the same time, they had, Shrewsbury had an affair going on. They called it the Colonial Way, where all the participants, clubs in the school were able to set up booths. They were going to have food trucks there. And I swear to God, there were 4,000 to 5,000 people there. And after the event, they all stayed and they watched a great football game. And it was like a little piece of Americana. You don't see that very often around here. But the place was mobbed. Cars were parked all the way down Cypress, all the way down the hill, down to Holden Street, all over the place. Cars were parked, and it was a great football game. All the trucks ran out of food, and they just stood around and watched the end of that game because St. John's pulled it out at the end. But that rivalry is great.
Sir.
Do you ever do the crew races?
Crew.
We have never done a crew race. No, we have not. We did one show down at the Donahue Rowing Center, down by the water. Actually, I think we did a couple of shows down there by the water, but we've actually not done. We've had the crew team on Coach's Corner, and we've interviewed the coaches and the kids. It's been a couple of years since we've had them on, but we've had the crew team on Coach's Corner.
We just talked about that too, because we'd like to have them come on again because they won the point championship in the fall. Shrewsbury High did, and we've been talking. We said we jokingly we were going to get in one of those, what do they call them, shells or whatever, and have a race with them.
You do not want to do that.
We're looking for somebody small to hold the little megaphone and tell us when the stroke.
The problem is that the idea did come up several years ago for us to do a crew race with somebody who's going to let us have a boat. And these guys kept on saying that if Henry came with us, they were going to push him off, and we weren't going to have that during the show. So that never happened.
As far as I'm concerned, that's the only true team sport. You stop to think about it. All 8 guys got to be doing the same damn thing at the same time.
Yeah.
And,
It's a great sport.
there's been some great crew teams in this town.
Yeah. Sir.
You were talking about some of the good stadiums and things that you've been in. Joe and I remember when we used to play Westboro High on Thanksgiving Day in the Speedway.
Oh,
The field of the Speedway.
Really?
And you'd get tackled and you'd come up with a spark plug or on a water
And that's how you started an auto business, the auto parts business.
Oh, that's a nut bowl.
That's great. That's great. Didn't know that.
Yeah, really.
Oh yeah, every Thanksgiving we played in the Speedway.
Yeah. Thanksgiving game.
In the infield.
Did he have stands set up and everything, or no?
Well, you know, they had.
Well, it's just outside, yeah.
Outside,
Yeah.
around the corner, yeah.
Wow.
but they had the roadway goes around it.
Yeah, right.
And we were inside.
Wow.
That was a great rivalry with Shrewsbury and Westboro.
Yeah.
I mean, even the superintendents would get involved. I mean, we never had, one year we had the superintendent give us a pep talk. And that's the first time I ever seen that done.
Yeah, right.
But that's because he hated the other superintendent so much.
Well, I got to tell you, we've been going and we've broadcast a lot of football games against Westboro, and that team always shows up to play every year. Shrewsbury's had their way with them for the last several years, but I'll tell you, this year was a great game.
Yeah.
Westboro almost knocked us off this year, but that's still a pretty good rivalry, Shrewsbury High and Westboro, especially in baseball.
Excuse me, do you remember when Shrewsbury played at Dean Park?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. We played all the time. I remember in practice we used to walk from Beale School to Dean Park to practice. After practice, we'd walk all the way back again. Remember that, Bob? Yeah, and
Really?
and I remember as a kid we used to sneak into Dean Park. When Dr. Conley would turn his back, we'd go into for free.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of fun with the Shrewsbury sports teams over the years. It's too bad we didn't, the good thing about this going forward is that all the kids that we've been broadcasting for the last 20 years can take those tapes and we'll have them forever, and they can show it to their kids and their grandkids. I know I see a lot of guys in this room that played sports in the past. I know Mr. Zona was a pretty good baseball player back in his day. If we could have broadcast you guys or somebody like that broadcast you when you were playing football and baseball back in the day, and you'd be able to show that to your kids nowadays, it'd be great to watch. It'd be a good thing to have. So these kids will always have these memories, and they'll be able to take it to their grave, and it's a good thing. I think it's been a good thing for the town, and we enjoy doing it. We really do. If we didn't like it, we wouldn't be doing it.
I always say to the students that of all the days in your life, you'll remember high school more than anything else.
Yeah, that's
more
true.
than college and more than anything else. Your high school days is because you're growing up and maturing in that time, and the rivalry is there, the competition is there, and the love affairs are there, etc. And you get kicked out of school there.
You get back in, you get kicked out again.
Well, it's surprising. I kicked a lot of kids out of school, suspended them rather. But they'll always cross the street to say hi to me,
Yeah, right.
which is nice. It tells you something about Shrewsbury.
They love you.
Well, I love the kids too. I mean, I helped a lot of them, but it was part of my job. And after I see this thing happening on Valentine's Day, I mentioned to my wife, I never suspended a kid in anger. That's the worst thing you can do, because that sets off a negative approach. You have to let them realize they did something wrong and they're being punished for it. And that's the reason for it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for having us here. We have to.
Well, we enjoyed having you here, and we hope that maybe in the future we'll have you again.
Thank you very much.
This is the greatest Thursday morning thing we've ever had here.
We'll see you next time on Good Morning Shrewsbury.